Welcome to FYI, the For-Your Innovation podcast. This show offers an intellectual discussion on technologically enabled disruption, because investing in innovation starts with understanding it. To learn more, visit arc-invest.com.
ARK Invest is a registered investment advisor focused on investing in disruptive innovation. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. It does not constitute, either explicitly or implicitly, any provision of services or products by ARK. All statements made regarding companies or securities are strictly beliefs and points of view held by ARK or podcast guests, and are not endorsements or recommendations by ARK to buy, sell, or hold any security. Clients of ARK Investment Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
Hello, and welcome to FYI, the For Your Innovation podcast. I'm Brett Winton, your host and faithful futurist. With me today, I have the maven of consumer AI and internet, Nick. Who are we talking to today?
Yes, thank you, Brett. Today we have the pleasure of speaking to the president of Shopify, Harley Finkelstein. He is an amazing guest. He's been with the company, I believe, 15 years. That's what he told us. He is a user of the platform, as we'll find out in the episode, and just an all-around advocate for entrepreneurs. And the work that him and the team over at Shopify are doing is truly incredible. They are lowering the cost of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it's really interesting how broad the Shopify platform is and how it touches on all of these areas that we've been doing research on. So maybe share a little about what we think is going to happen with digital purchasing agents in the future.
Yeah, don't want to give too much away of the episode, but we are currently looking at the generative AI space and saying, how can this apply to shopping, to the consumer? And one thing we have quickly realized is that it's very good at doing a large portion of the shop and discovery that we as consumers today carry out. And so we think that these agents, when we get to agentic behavior in AI, are going to be carrying out shopping tasks for us as consumers. So they will embed themselves in wallets and be able to go out on behalf of the individual and purchase goods and services for you with, obviously, your permission. But we talk about that a bit in the episode, and we hear from Shopify and how they plan to integrate and think about what we're currently researching, which is this agentic shopping future.
Yeah, it's a really kind of fascinating direction that commerce is moving. And I am fairly certain it's going to become quite ubiquitous for people in terms of how they get stuff. And Shopify's positioning here is really provocative. So enjoy the conversation. Nick, thanks for setting it up, and we will see you next time.
Okay, Harley, thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited to have you. Let's jump right into it. We saw the report this morning. Maybe you can just touch high level on how the quarter went and then talk to us about some of the highlights. You've been growing since inception, since IPO, and even beyond that, and you're still growing at such a fast clip. So please give us the highlights and we'll dig in.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's great to talk to you guys. I know you've been following our story for quite some time, so honored to be here. I think the headline from Q3 was that entrepreneurship is on the rise, global commerce is on the rise, and that Shopify is gaining share in a very large market. I think the thing that most investors and certainly analysts were looking for is whether we were able to deliver both on growth and on margin, and I think we did that. GMV, which is a proxy for how merchants on Shopify are doing, was up 24%. That's actually the fifth consecutive quarter where GMV was greater than 20%. It was about $69 billion. Revenue was $2.2 billion, which was up like 26% or so. Gross profit grew 24%. Operating income doubled from last year. But I think the thing that a lot of, it seems like a lot of people cared to learn about was really free cash on margin, which expanded to 19%. And we're really happy with that free cash on margin because it allows us to, grow the business and invest in the future. And then maybe the only other thing that, I thought I was really excited to share with everyone was that we are seeing more merchants come to Shopify across more verticals, more industries, more geographies. The vertical thing is not new. We've always had, like scrub companies like Figs to, food companies like ButcherBox to companies like Gymshark that are in the apparel industry. But I think the industries was interesting. I think geographies was interesting. On the industry side, seeing more growth come from B2B, I think was really, people were excited by that. B2B GMV grew like 145%. And then larger merchants had come on. We've been working on the enterprise side for almost since the IPO. Initially, it was merchants who started on Shopify that grew really large, and we wanted to make sure they had a place to graduate to on Shopify. But in the last 5 years or so, we've seen these iconic, legendary brands. This quarter alone, Reebok, Off-White, Lionsgate, Hanes, On Running, one of my favorite brands, Victoria's Secret, all came to Shopify too. And so I think the story this quarter was a company that is able to grow the top line, grow, have great profitability and reinvest in the business, but also increase the amount of on-ramps into Shopify, not just e-commerce in North America, but rather global commerce everywhere.
You laid out kind of this vision, or Shopify laid out a vision for getting into B2B, getting into enterprise, at least a year ago. And I'm sure it's been strategic works for a while. Why is that working? Usually, it's sometimes self-serve kind of businesses have trouble kind of branching into those kind of high-touch relationships where they expect more customization or they expect more kind of like maybe bells and whistles. Like, how have you been able to kind of bridge that gap?
I think a challenge is that a lot of companies that start in the SMB segment have a really tough time moving up market. What often tends to happen is they just kind of move up market entirely and they forget about that sort of SMB segment. That was never our intention. Our intention was always to kind of stretch up market. And the strategy is that, what if we made Shopify the place where everyone that has an idea in the shower in the morning starts their business? We know that not all businesses will succeed, but the ones that do offset the costs of the ones that don't, and over time will stay with us for a very long period of time and take more of our solutions and more of our products. And it's almost like sort of think of like an annuity, that like we are still making money from cohorts that signed up with us 10, 12, 15 years ago. So we believe in the SMB segment. We think it's really important. But at the same time, we wanted to create more of these kind of growth levers on the company, so that it's great when Ben Francis, who's the founder of Gymshark, when he grows Gymshark to be $1 billion brand, the fact that he stays with Shopify, we love that. Or Trina at Figs, or any of these kind of homegrown success stories, Ronnie at Kith, for example, or those are amazing. But when Glossier, who famously builds a very large engineering team, decides, hey, we're a cosmetics company, we don't really need to have hundreds of engineers running our own e-commerce stack. We want to go to Shopify because we think they're going to future-proof our business. They're resilient. They understand the future of retail is retail everywhere, online, offline, everywhere in between. That's when this thing gets really interesting. And so the key from a product perspective is that the complexity of Shopify, it almost needs to reveal itself over time. It can overwhelm those small businesses because they'll never get started. It'll be, it's like the paradox of choice. It's just, they won't do anything. So we wanted to make it so that you can get started, but then as you grow to become a multi-billion-dollar company, you never have to leave. And what started happening, I guess in the last 4 or 5 years, is that we saw companies like Mattel and companies like Staples and companies like Authentic Brands Group come to us and say, look, we have a business that's at scale. We just want to make sure that as we grow, we future-proof our tech stack. Meaning, when there's a new channel to sell on, we want to be able to sell there, whether it's Instagram commerce or YouTube live selling or selling on TikTok or an integration to Pinterest or Spotify. And so we've really thought about ourselves as shifting from being an e-commerce provider for small businesses to really being a retail operating system for business of all sizes. And specifically to your question, why is that important? It's because there's now so many different on-ramps into Shopify. Each on-ramp is a solution to a particular problem. I want to sell offline. I want to sell online. I want to sell on Instagram. Each of those are reasons people come to Shopify. But once they get onto the platform, they realize that they actually can activate more channels. They can take more merchant solutions. They can use Shopify payments, or they can use capital or some of our financial services. And it just creates a much more durable company that isn't reliant, back to what I said earlier, on any one particular industry, one particular geography, or one particular type of merchant.
How do you approach the different nuances and preferences of consumers in international markets? On the call this morning, you did call out particular strength in Europe, and I'm just wondering, did you go into that market with a different plan? You just mentioned how, you have kind of a unified solution for the merchant, but the consumer has different preferences in different markets. So how do you build a product from the consumer-facing side that matches those international markets?
Yeah. I mean, we've built this unified system because that's what merchants want. The consumer just wants to be able to buy whatever they want in whatever channel they prefer. And so in many ways, that's actually been at a macro level. If you think about the macro shift in retail, Nick, you kind of just nailed it, which is that historically, when you wanted to buy bread, you went to the baker. And you wanted to buy shoes, you went to the cobbler. And those merchants dictated to you, the consumer, how to buy. My store opens at this hour, you pay with this credit card, you line up here to check out, and this is my return policy. And you sort of had to accept it. The big change that has happened, I'm a bit of a retail student, a retail history geek. John Wanamaker created Wanamaker's department stores in, I think it was 1876 in Philadelphia. First time that under one roof you had a bunch of different brands, first department store in America. If you sort of think about it, generally retail has been pretty boring ever since. It was more of the same. Stores got bigger, some had flashy lights and some put a water park in there, but generally retail was pretty consistent since 1876 all the way back to Wanamaker's. What's happened in the last 10 years or 15 years or so is this shift is around consumer preference, where consumers are saying, I want to buy it this way. I want to use this payment method. I want to be able to check out using one-click Shop Pay or Apple Pay or whatever your accelerated checkout might be. And so the challenge for us is that regardless of how many countries we operate in, which is I think it's now about 175 countries, we have to make sure we have product market fit. And there's a lot we can do ourselves. 80 or 90% of what every merchant needs is the same. Inventory has to work well. Promotions has to work well. Reporting analytics has to work well. Your ability to do, flash sales, if you're, Supreme, one of our merchants behind me, has to work well. But that last 10, 20, 15%, somewhere in that range, that is very unique to each particular merchant, each particular country. And that's where we have this thriving ecosystem of over 10,000 apps. And each of these third-party app developers are able to build something specifically for a type of merchant in a type of a place. And in some places, it's a matter of having the right payment provider. So we integrate with a whole bunch of payment providers. In some places, it's about having the right apps or the right integrations. In a place like we just announced an integration this past quarter with Roblox, where Shopify is now powering commerce inside of Roblox. That's not going to be something most merchants need most of the time. But there are some merchants who activating that particular Roblox channel will be an amazing advantage for them to get in front of consumers in a way that their competition does not. And that's going to require you being on Shopify.
It's interesting looking at Shopify's whole product portfolio. It's so ambitious. There are so many things that Shopify does. And then there's the developer ecosystem that's providing those kind of customization layer on top. And I think somebody might naively approach this and be like, oh gosh, this probably is a business that doesn't have great margins. There's probably not a lot of capital discipline here. How does the team work that it's able to do all of this stuff and still vertically integrate in so many different directions and still deliver, like you said, great cash flow numbers? And how do you draw the line, knowing this is a bridge too far, or this is an area that we're not going to go into? How did those decisions get made?
A moment of self-awareness, I suppose, for our company. But there are some areas we've gone into that felt like a side quest. The best example is SFN, Shopify Fulfillment Network, which we've now divested and sold to Flexport. That's a really good kind of fractal or proxy for this philosophy, which is that Shopify's core offering must do what most merchants need most of the time. Full stop. Now, that is a dynamic definition. So that means that over time, that may change. There was a point many, over a decade ago where there were apps in the Shopify App Store who specifically were built to mobile optimize your online store, your desktop browser-based online store. If you want to take it into a sort of a mobile, construct or a mobile phone or a tablet, you use an app for that because most people didn't need that. And eventually, it was clear that a lot of our merchants and a lot of those merchants' customers were buying using a mobile device. It was no longer something that a third party was going to do. We had to build it ourselves because it was so important. So that litmus test really helps. Back to sort of Flexport and SFN, one thing that gets missed often is that if you pretend that Shopify was a single retailer, aggregate all our stores just in the US, we would be the second largest online retailer in America after Amazon. What that means is we have this incredible economy of scale. So when we go to negotiate rates on payments or shipping labels or capital or any type of merchant solution, we walk in to this negotiation with a lot of leverage because of our size. And then we can take that economy of scale and we can actually distribute it to all the merchants that use Shopify. In some cases, we decide to take those economies of scale and run with it and build it ourselves. And that was our original idea with SFN. But it became clear that SFN for Shopify was a side quest. But when you looked at what Ryan and the guys at Flex were doing, it was their main quest. They were already doing the things that we were trying to do and would have got to eventually, but that's all they were thinking about. And so in that case, it made more sense to say, hey, Flexport, you take care of shipping for our merchants in this category. We're not going to do that anymore. But in other cases, we've decided that we have to build these things ourselves. Audiences, for example, our advertising product, because of the amount of data we have, we can help merchants make much better decisions around targeting when it comes to placing performance ads, whether it's on Facebook or on Meta or on Instagram or on Google. However, we've partnered with companies like Affirm for Shop Pay installments because we think Affirm is doing great at buy now, pay later. When you look at managed markets, our cross-border checkout, we partnered with Global-e for that. So there are some times, Brett, where we feel like we can build this thing better than anyone else can. And there are other times where we look across the industry and it's clear that there is someone there who's built something that is so fantastic that is better for us to partner with them and leverage their technology and their understanding than to just build it ourselves from scratch.
So I could draw a line where you've kind of like laid out stuff that you're not doing versus that you are, that would, roughly align with the capital intensity of that. It's clearly, like Shopify Fulfillment Network was an incredibly capital-intensive undertaking, but even kind of the Affirm buy now, pay later, you have to devote balance sheet to kind of doing those loans. Is that like an area where you're particularly sensitive, or is that because there are a lot of things that you're doing and doing well, or is that like an inappropriate way to think about how you distinguish?
It's less about the CapEx. It's more about, can we build something that doesn't already exist? That is like, are we making something that doesn't otherwise exist, or are we making something that does exist 10 times better? And if we are taking something that doesn't exist and making it exist, or making something that does, making 10 times better, we should do it ourselves. But if it falls below that definition, we probably should find someone who's doing it really, really well. I mean, Shopify Payments is a great example, because Shopify Payments probably our oldest and longest standing merchant solution's been around for, a decade, maybe slightly longer. We have great partners there. I mean, we just announced PayPal, but we've been working with Stripe for many years. We think what Stripe is doing and what PayPal has done is so fantastic that simply overlaying our own UX on top of it and allowing merchants to use Shopify Payments and have incredible infrastructure that we don't have to build all ourselves, and leveraging people in the world who, for both PayPal and Stripe, I mean, payments is all they do. They are world class at this thing. And so that's more of the way we think about what to build ourselves versus where to partner.
Harley, how do you take that framework and apply it to this new product category emerging in generative AI? You have a number of different solutions out there in the market. You've done, and What I think most people misunderstand about Shopify is it's drastically lowered the cost of entrepreneurship in the US and globally. Like if you think about what you've done for entrepreneurs, you've allowed them to focus on what they're great at and then offload a ton of that work to Shopify and the platform you've built and the third-party applications. And now you have this new product emerging with generative AI. And I'm just curious how you approach that space in terms of building first-party solutions and then allowing the third-party marketplace to dictate what merchants might onboard to.
Thank you for saying that. The mission of our company and my personal mission, I think Toby's also is, we think more entrepreneurship should exist. We think that for a very long time, entrepreneurship was out of reach for most people. And the reason it was out of reach was most people assumed it was too expensive or too complicated. There was this tendency that if you didn't sort of self-identify as an entrepreneur, you didn't deserve to go through this journey. And we think that's ridiculous. We think like more people should try their hand at small businesses and starting new companies and entrepreneurship, especially because right now, as we, in 2024, the cost of failure is about as low as it has ever been. I mean, you used to have to mortgage your entire life in order for you to take a loan out to go start a business. Capital was the original ingredient for business creation historically. That's not the case anymore. Now you can start a business on Shopify and you may end up, I talked to Trina about this, who's the CEO of Figs, who's now a public company, who's sort of, completely disrupted the hospital, frontline worker scrub market, incredible business, who started on Shopify literally at her friend's kitchen table and has now built a multi-billion-dollar business. So the cost of failure is really, really low. So more people are getting started. That is amazing. Certainly the data that we have seen, even in the last couple of years, has been quite remarkable. I mean, there is this, I think it just came out, it was the US Census Department talking about, what is happening right now in terms of business creation. And the term that was in this report was like, this is the era of entrepreneurship, that never before has there been so many tools and resources available to merchants. And it just, I believe that. I see that there are more people participating now than ever before. Okay, so now more people are starting, more people realize that it's an exciting thing for them to do. They can commercialize their hobby. They can take an idea in the shower and make it available to other people. That's all wonderful. Now the question is, what happens once you get started? And this is where AI becomes really, really important. There is an unfair advantage that larger companies have relative to smaller companies when it comes to resources. So take something as simple as product photography or writing product descriptions. I had a chance to spend some time recently with Mickey Drexler, an iconic retail leader. He ran the Gap for about 18 years or so. He created Old Navy. He recreated J. Crew. He was on the board of Apple, I think, for 10 years, worked very closely with Steve Jobs. And he talked about the merchandising department inside of the Gap. And it was hundreds of people. And product photography and descriptions and how things were displayed was a big part of their business. If you're a one-person or a two-person operation, you can't really do that. However, this is where AI can really play a role in kind of leveling the playing field, where now using our media editor, Shopify's media editor, powered by AI technology, you can actually create beautiful photography. We can actually suggest, and AI can suggest, really highly converting and very compelling product descriptions. Something as simple as, I talked about this on the call today, but suggested replies in Shopify inbox, that now you can get an AI-generated reply so that if a merchant asks a question, highly contextualized responses happen in real time right away with a lot of the information they're asking for, which means you as an entrepreneur can spend more time building your product and building your business. This is where I think Shopify is uniquely positioned to really take advantage of AI in a way that most other companies cannot. This is where the leveling of the playing field really plays a role. And then internally, where we can use it, I think when you look at our finance department, our support department, engineering, our new CTO, Mikhail, is one of the people that helped build Copilot inside of Microsoft. We are injecting AI across our company for more efficiency. Now, in terms of, where do we leverage other companies? This is well known, but we work very closely with OpenAI. We think some of the stuff they're doing is amazing. So we leverage technology from others where we think it can give us a great advantage. In other cases, we build it ourselves where it doesn't exist.
How do you think about kind of that dynamic, or call it a dynamic that we have heavily debated? One, I think in the quarter you talked about kind of search and how search can migrate to a different spot. Finding products can migrate to a different spot in kind of like technology landscape with AI, and it touches so many aspects of kind of being a merchant. It would seem like you have very rich data sources where you could even be training your own models or adapting open source models as opposed to relying on OpenAI. Or it could be that you're fine-tuning OpenAI models. If you were to cast yourself forward, what do you think the equilibrium looks like with kind of like Shopify's own built AI versus kind of building on top of foundations that others have built?
We are not a really hand-wavy company when it comes to, I know a lot of companies talk about, all the AI stuff they're doing and sort of, it's all about practicality for us. Where we have an opportunity to leverage an open source model or use a company that exists, a private company, it's all about impact. What is going to advance our company faster? What's going to help our merchants be more successful? That's what matters to us, rather than sort of say, this is the type of thing we're doing. And especially because the advancements right now happening in technology, especially around AI, is getting so good so quickly, it's impossible to anticipate how good this is going to get. It is much better on a per case basis to do the evaluation of what is more valuable.
Do you look at what is happening? I want to stay on the AI topic, and just in thinking about agentic capability when it comes to AI, being able to look at the broader space and what is readily available out there online. And that seems to apply itself directly to shopping, being able to price compare, find exactly what you need when you need it. Do you see Shopify playing a role in that? I guess, are we going to be dictating and allowing an agent to go out on behalf of ourselves and purchase goods in the near future? Or is that something you still think will be left up and decided by humans?
I'm sort of, smiling here, Nick, because I actually think this is a really important topic. Historically, most people of very high means that had money had these personal shoppers with them. And these personal shoppers would effectively act as a concierge for their own retail desires. You tell them what you want, you tell them price points, you tell them what brands you're into, what stores, the looks, they understand what you already have in your closet. And you actually paid someone to do that. Well, for most people, including I think all of us, we've never had that. I mean, most people don't have that opportunity because none of us grew up like that. So that was out of reach for most consumers. And what's amazing about some of these new sort of agents and these AI agents that allow you to kind of help with these types of purchases is it transforms how people shop. Agents can create a more efficient, a way more tailored shopping experience for shoppers. And what we're doing is we're building these AI offerings that keep merchants on the cutting edge to help them better run their businesses. And the flip side is that these consumers can have a better experience. We have something called shop.ai, which it's built into the Shop app, but it also, you can just go to it in your browser. My daughter turned 8 years old in June, and I literally typed in, I'm having a birthday party for my daughter. She's into two things, true story. She's into unicorns and she's into rainbows. I was like, this is going to be the theme. I need it for this particular date. What do I need to buy? And shop.ai simply gave me pretty much everything I needed. It gave me tablecloths, it gave me decorations, it gave me balloons, it even gave me like outfits that me and my wife were able to wear. And I was able to purchase it in one single place. It was a delightful experience. And this thing, even since June when I did it, keeps getting better and better. I didn't put this in, but I want to be able to very soon say, and by the way, it's Tuesday, I need this by Friday because the party's on Saturday. And so only show me products that you can guarantee will be there at that particular time. This is something that the highest echelon of consumers were able to have. And with these AI agents, these sort of commerce concierges that have a full understanding of every product on Shopify, that have a full understanding of everything I've purchased, that understand nuance and context, man, that's going to be really, really cool. And that's it's already here, and it keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, commerce concierge. I like that term.
Yeah, I definitely buy the vision, and I can understand how that's extraordinarily attractive to consumers. And I think it ties into something that you've generally been talking about that Shopify's been very good at, which is essentially democratizing access to things that previously were only available to the biggest.
It's the mission of the company. Make commerce better for everyone is the mission of the company. And it's about taking tools. I mean, this is really where it started from. When Toby wanted to build that original snowboard shop in 2004, and he looked at the products on the market, it was either sell on a marketplace, which didn't allow you to build your own brand, or it was spend $1 million on like IBM WebSphere or, Magento, or I don't know what was out there at that point, probably Hybris or ATG. What Shopify does today from a product perspective for $39 a month is so much better than what those big brands had to purchase, 20 years ago. And we're still doing that.
So from the consumer side, amazing. I could also imagine how from the merchant side, that might make me nervous, as in, oh, wait, so an AI agent is going to, price compare me to everything else and kind of like, really force me into more intense competition with everybody that's on kind of like the marketplace. How do you think about the way that even merchants can position themselves in that future state? And is that a kind of concern to your merchant class and kind of your merchant business?
We are really lucky because even if you look at the largest brands on Shopify, so Carrier, which sells industrial heating and cooling equipment, or Staples, or Glossier, or Mattel, or Toys R Us, Skims, Alo, Viore, every one of them had massive, incumbent competition, and yet somehow they were able to cut through the noise. This is where, the retailers, even the largest ones that are modern in their thinking, that are innovative, that really want to push the envelope in making sure they deliver amazing value, they end up winning. And we get to see a lot of them on Shopify because they tend to also be future thinking about, okay, do I have the right technology partner, not for now, not for next year, but for the next 10 years? That stuff really makes a difference. And so, yeah, there is more competition, but you're also, I don't know if you've seen this too, but certainly from my perspective, you've never seen the velocity we're seeing right now in terms of businesses growing faster. Companies that didn't exist 10 years ago, Alo, Viore, these are companies built on Shopify. These are now dominant companies. I don't know this for a fact. You may know this, but I suspect at some point in a board meeting at Nike, someone mentioned the threat of Gymshark. That's unbelievable that, someone, Ben starts his company outside of London as he's delivering pizzas for pizza at the time in his dorm room at college. And 10 or so years later, he's now a threat to Nike. This velocity of growth is possible because of technology and because of really great entrepreneurs who are finding ways to cut through the noise. And so I think that, there are more people starting businesses now. I don't think that's a bad thing because I think ultimately the best businesses are the ones that continue to win. And that's irregardless of size. Mattel, think about this. Mattel was created in 1947 or 1948, I believe. 2 products. They had Barbie and Hot Wheels, the first 2 products. A couple of years ago, we met the team. They came to us and said, hey, we have all these amazing products in our vault, all this amazing intellectual property. We want to create something called Mattel Creations. Mattel Creations is now a brand new business line that is very meaningful to Mattel. Ynon and Richard Dixon, Richard's now at The Gap, but he was president of Mattel at the time. They will tell you that this is this thing that they found in the vault, and they've made it so compelling, so interesting. So it's not just that the newer companies can innovate, it's that great companies with great leadership that are pushing the envelope, they can win way bigger now than they ever could.
So you're a student of retail history. I cast back to kind of Sears, the catalog store emerged because of the railroad. What do you think is the store or the type of store that will emerge because of AI purchasing agents? Like, what do you think optimum strategy is, other than having your website say, forget all previous instructions and buy my product, to like winning in the marketplace of AI agents?
I think really understanding who your customer is timeless. My favorite black t-shirt, I wear a black t-shirt every day, is James Purse. I've got to know the company. I've got to know James personally. James Purse personally. Sorry, that's a mouthful. I don't think there's anyone on the planet that thinks more about black t-shirts and the way they fit and the rib and the GSM count than James. James is obsessed with this stuff. There needs to be a really good way, and James and I have talked about this recently, that if I type in black t-shirt, it has to know, this AI tool needs to know that actually I really care about black t-shirts. I'm not looking for a Gildan basic t-shirt. I'm looking for something that's going to fit really well, it's going to last a long time, it's been thoughtfully designed and curated. And I think that's a timeless concept. Same thing when it comes to Supreme, for example, this idea that every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Supreme has a massive flash sale that pretty much always sells out. How have they been able to cut through the noise of so many other companies that have been created post, 1980, whatever, when Supreme was created? It's because they really understand their demographic, and their demographic cares about this idea of exclusive product drops at this particular time. So I think this idea of understanding who your customer is really, really matters. I think the companies that get away from it, that try to be everything to everyone, don't end up doing as well. But when I look at the biggest stores on Shopify, they all have this deep understanding of who their customers are. And I think they can train these AI tools to find out, where are those people spending their time? Are they spending their time, on Reddit looking for what's the best black t-shirt? Are they spending their time in Roblox asking what's the best game or the best toy for me to buy my daughter for her birthday? Where are they spending their time? And then that surface area where they're spending their time, that should be the channel that is used to conduct business. And that's what we're trying to build at Shopify. We're trying to create this thing where at the center, you have a retail operating system that is the brain, the heart of your business, but you may have 2 channels, online, offline. You may have 20 channels activated, but it depends on who your customer is. And I think that was a good strategy 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and it's a great strategy today as well.
Harley, we were talking about this before we clicked record, but you're also a customer of Shopify. You are a retailer yourself. What is your favorite product you have as a customer? Like when you use Shopify for your own storefront, and please feel free to plug it, what is your favorite product that Shopify offers to you?
I think the Shopify mobile app is unbelievable. I have a little side business, Brett, called Firebelly Tea that I started with my best friend, David. I love coffee, but I can't drink coffee afternoon. David is famously the founder of David's Tea, $1 billion tea IPO a couple years ago. And he started curating great tea for me in the afternoon so I can sort of have this calm alertness. As you can probably tell, I'm quite high energy, so coffee in the afternoon would not work very well. But I'm also the president of Shopify, which is my main quest and where I spend all my time. I think the Shopify, like the mobile, not Shop app, but Shopify for merchants is incredible. I mean, a lot of you have heard this. You've got sales. And I mean, that cha-ching sound, when I'm in airports, when I'm in hotels, when I'm on the train, when I'm in random places, I hear someone have that cha-ching sound, and I look at them and it's like, we know, like, there's like this connection. We're in this community of entrepreneurs. But David and I effectively run, a 7-figure tea business on the side entirely from the Shopify mobile app. We sell in many countries. We sell wholesale. We're in Erewhon and Bloomingdale's, and it's all ran on my phone. Like basically, between my meetings or in the evenings or on weekends. That is unbelievable.
It is.
And we do that for millions of stores around the world. It's really cool.
Maybe just one last question, Harley. You've been with Shopify since the start. So what are you most proud of being a part of this story? What is your proudest moment since joining the company?
We talked a bit about the app ecosystem. The fact that if you are building a piece of technology, an app, software for the commerce and retail space, that the App Store is effectively the go-to-market strategy to get your app, your software, your feature into the hands of millions of stores and businesses. I think it's the largest ecosystem of commerce partners on the planet by far. I'm very proud of that. I think that's really cool. I'm really proud of the fact that we're not just e-commerce for small business anymore, but rather we help every size merchant sell on every channel possible. That's important. A major moment for me was really in 2020 during the pandemic. It felt like overnight everyone had to kind of move online. Every physical retailer had to move online, and not all were ready. And we scrapped our product roadmap, and instead we simply thought about, how do we add the most value right now? Like, this pandemic is unprecedented. People are scared. Merchants are losing their businesses. People need to survive. And we just started doing things like curbside pickup and touchless, keypads. And I just think that, companies should be evaluated not in kind of the times where everything is going well, but when things are a little bit rough, how do they operate? How do they show up for their customers? And I'm really, I remember at the time, Shopify Capital was only available, I think, in the US, and over like a weekend, like literally Saturday morning at 10 a.m. until Sunday afternoon. A few of us got together and figured out a way to open up Shopify Capital to Canada, to the UK, to get the underwriting set up. By Monday morning, we were able to offer cash advances to way more merchants than we could on Friday afternoon. So I'm really, really proud of that. I also think that the enterprise push is really fantastic. It's amazing. I mean, watching brands like Kylie and Skims start and grow on Shopify, that is awesome. But now that some of my favorite brands are coming to the company, I mean, getting On Running On and getting companies like, Glossier and Aloe and Barnes and Noble and Overstock to come on, I think is incredible. Like the fact that we can help small businesses get started, but also we're enterprise grade, that we can help the biggest companies do the biggest flash sales, and it's all beautifully organized in this unified retail operating system. I really, I don't know, those are some of the things I'm most proud of. And I think maybe at a high level, this idea that we can do this in a way that, grows the business, grows the top line, but also allows us to reinvest because we have free cash flow margins that allow us to do so. I think that's the way you build a truly long-term, 100-year durable company. And this is, this is my 15th year at Shopify. So more than a third of my life has been spent here. This is by far the best version of the company, the best team, the highest quality product, the most focus. I'm really proud of the company that we've become. And I can't, the future is really exciting. And as you can see hopefully you can see from my tone and the way I speak about these things, like, we're so excited about what we're able to do here. I think that Shopify is the closest thing to the world's entrepreneurship company, not just small entrepreneur, but like entrepreneur in general. That means if you're at a big company and you're entrepreneurial, or you're at your mom's kitchen table getting started, I think Shopify being the entrepreneurship company is really meaningful to all of us that work here. I mean, we're a company of entrepreneurs building software for other entrepreneurs.
Well, this has been really great, Harley, and I appreciate you taking the time. I, for one, am definitely going to go to shop.ai to plan. I just had a child on Saturday.
My third. Congratulations.
But I have to order.
Maybe early for a birthday party.
Yeah. But maybe like it'll suggest some cigars, I guess.
That's right. That's
I'm supposed to hand out. Yeah. So love to try it out, and really appreciate you kind of laying out the vision, and look forward to at least another 14 years. I mean, you laid out a century. To see where Shopify goes from here.
Thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure, Nick and Brett. Thank you for this.
Harley, Cheers. Thank you so much.
What a fascinating conversation with Harley Finkelstein. The way I think about Shopify is it really is an operating system for entrepreneurs. And if you think about like why operating systems exist, it's because there are certain shared software functions that a developer, in this case an entrepreneur, needs. And so those functions are developed by the operating system and then commonly shared across this set of users. And so the potential for the business is they have AI purchasing agents interfacing with an operating system for merchants that is optimized to making their wares most attractive to that set of AI purchasing agents, with that attractiveness also driven by a lot of AI tools on the back end. And so a really kind of fascinating and adjacent exposure to AI in Shopify. Thanks so much for listening to FYI, the For Your Innovation podcast. Please like, subscribe, and leave comments on the podcasting platform of your choice. And please spread and share us on your socials. You can also find us on YouTube if you're not watching this in person, so enjoy it there as well.
ARC believes that the information presented is accurate and was obtained from sources that ARC believes to be reliable. However, ARC does not guarantee the accuracy or completeness of any information, and such information may be subject to change without notice from ARC. Historical results are not indications of future results. Certain of the statements contained in this podcast may be statements of future expectations and other forward-looking statements that are based on ARC's current views and assumptions and involve known and unknown risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results, performance, or events to differ materially from those expressed or implied in such statements.